reflect on this a little bit. But my answer to that is that I think they admire what they understand about Indian culture, but particularly, they admire they have what they have understood of Indian culture, what sometimes is problematic for Americans about Indians in overseas Indians. I can only speak for Indians in US, and I think it probably applies even more so to the Indians in UK, is that the inclination of Indians, and please remember that this is not meant as criticism, it is meant as a comment. The inclination of immigrants generally is when they move to a foreign land, in this case America, because they want to feel comfortable, language, food, culture, religion, traditions, beliefs, they tend to congregate in areas where other Indians live. Okay? And you brought up a very important question. Where Indians have a tendency to do that. So if you come to America and ask anybody, they'll say in Washington area, larger metropolitan area, the Indians tend to live in this one locality, and they're all Indians there. They mingle with each other, they eat with one another, they practice the rituals. New Jersey is a hot spot of Indian population, as is places like Yuba City in California. And the Indians tend then to be somewhat clannish. So if the Americans criticize, they will say that they are observing that Indians build cultural islands where there are only other Indians because that is a higher level of comfort for them. Okay? They are creating a little India, and that's where they feel most comfortable. Now, I think there's a lot of truth in that. When I moved to Washington, we made a conscious decision. And I'm sharing only a personal thing. It is not a judgment on anyone. We decided that the reason you go to another country is that you want to interact with the people there. You want to learn from them and have them learn from you, particularly your host country. If you build a little island of Little India in USA, you are doing none of that. You may as well be in India, except that you're making more money because you are in the US. So this mentality of being clannish, it's a very human desire, it's a natural desire, but one probably should resist the temptation. I think that when one goes to another culture, it is incumbent upon you to learn about their culture, to have friends who are from the local host country, to try to go to their homes and invite them to your home to eat Indian food. You want to partake not only of their hospitality and giving you jobs, you want to be able to share. So I would say that yes, I'm critical of Indians who never move beyond, rise above their comfort level of wanting to be with other Indians. And they have their little temples there, they have their, the mosques there, they have Indian restaurants there. People are speaking Hindi or Urdu or Gujarati or whatever, you may as well be in India. Why are you here? And if the answer is you're here because you can make a lot of money, then I think that to me is very mercenary. You are going there just for money, okay? And I'm, it's not meant to be, this is the way I feel. It is my view. I don't want to say that it's the right one, but this is how. Indians tend to be very, very, where England you go, Australia you go, Canada you go, there are little cultural islands, Indian islands, and they mingle only with other Indians. I often ask other Indians, how many times have you eaten at an American's house? How many times have you called somebody whom you work with who's American, a white American, or a black American, black even more so, okay? How many times have you had an African American come and eat at your house and cook Indian food? Most of the time, they have never invited an African American. And I resisted that. As I said, I'm a citizen of the world. I didn't go to America to make money. I went there because I thought it was going to be a journey of self-discovery, and I was going to get the best of what I could find there. So I'm troubled by this mentality. It's an easy thing, it's a comfortable thing, but you got to, even the act of traveling abroad, you are leaving your comfort zone. I mean, why else would anybody go abroad, right? There's a lot of newness and everything. There's a lot of anxiety. Why in the world would you go if all you are doing is trying to find a little place, which is India? Yes. So does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. And it's a very, very important question, and I'm glad you asked it rather than me talk about it, because then I'm responding rather than criticizing. Okay, other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, this question is related to terminology. So you said that there's some sense of like it's derogatory to use the word Habshi. So and then again there's one term that is I think used for Asians in East Africa, Muhindi. So I mean, how is that used? I mean, because I have found different connotations of the term Muhindi in different texts. So what was your personal experience as an Asian in?
Okay. The Africa, it was so long ago that I did my field work, 1970 something, I think 1975, 76, whatever. The word Habshi, mostly used in India for Siddhis, the descendants of Africans who migrated to India, I think is being used very much in a derogatory way. There's something negative when people use the word, instead of saying Siddhi or Siddhi or Shiddhi, which is the way they like to call themselves, they say Habshi, or worse still, they say Kalia in Gujarat. If anybody ever says that, I get very, Kalia in Gujarati means the black one. Okay? So I think we are talking, and Habshi should simply mean Habash, somebody who's coming from Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is one of the great centers of early civilization. So why are we negating it? Yeah? I have to say that while we talked about some criticisms that I made earlier of the Indian community in America, another very strong criticism, and I have to say, it's not just the whites who are racist, who are color conscious. It's Indians who are very color conscious. And to me, it is absolutely unforgivable. We have been victims of color prejudice. The British were prejudiced towards us as brown people. They looked down upon us. They frowned down upon us. They ruled over us. And they treated us negatively. What right do we have to go and do the same thing to people of African descent? So I think that is another area. It shows, it's an indication of our uh, color consciousness, and that's what drove me to write a whole book on the subject, which I'm going to discuss in the next 2 days some point. I've lost count whether it's tomorrow or day after, and it's called Dying to be White: The Obsession with Fair Skin in India and the Global South. And it's not just obsession with fair skin in India, it's an obsession with fair skin amongst people in Pakistan, in Sindh, in Bangladesh, Everywhere, yes, yes. And amongst Indians in America, amongst Indians in England, amongst Indians in Australia, it is like we have never shed our colonial mentality. We still want to be white. Why? I think people are beautiful the way they are. Brown, black, white, brown, whatever. But why is it that Indians are so color conscious? And, people couldn't understand that I was, after all my education, that I was going off to study African history. They said, why would you do it? Why not? They are human beings. They were on the continent of Africa. So, in some ways, it's a very deep rooted color prejudice, exceedingly deep rooted color prejudice. And it's, human beings are like that, but the only way we can change is to talk about it and become aware of the injustice and unfairness involved in judging anyone by the color of their skin. Now, I had a very interesting anecdote about this, and I hope I didn't mention it the other day. When I first moved to Washington and was looking for a job, I thought I'd go to the Indian Embassy, Embassy of India in Washington, and talk to them to say, well, I'm doing this, I've done this, what are the opportunities for me? And there was a lady there, and she said, I have I'm shy to say this, but she said, I have a son who's graduating from Harvard, and I'm looking for a bride for him. So I knew where she was taking that. And I said, ma'am, I'm already married, and I married of my own. I wouldn't have arranged marriage, so I'm not interested. And very interestingly, she said, you have a sister? I said, yes. My younger sister is at Cornell University, and she's doing her PhD in international nutrition. And she said, is she married? And I said, no. I knew where she was, what. And she said, can you tell me if she's fairer than you are? Okay. I, I stopped my conversation there. She was looking for a fair bride, and I was certainly not qualifying for her. I don't know what she was looking for. And I felt really insulted. And if this is somebody in the Indian embassy, what can we hope for? Okay, she's looking for a fair bride. It's like the matrimonial columns in Times of India wanted fair and beautiful. Like anybody who's not fair can't be beautiful. And I think beauty comes in all colors. And that's when 50 years ago, I decided I was someday going to write a book on this obsession with, I don't know, I, and this is at the top levels. You're not talking an uneducated, illiterate woman. You're talking somebody in the embassy, okay? Such deep prejudices. And I think beauty is, you can see beautiful people everywhere, black, white, brown. What does it matter? But it's very deeply embedded in Indian culture, sadly. And you people, when you have daughters, encourage them to, and you yourself, to move beyond color, to think of character and worthiness and intelligence and goodness rather than the color of one's skin. It makes my blood boil. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, more questions? Yes.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is that when people from India move to US or any other place in the world, so there are many challenges, like regarding the diasporic challenges, so they have to adapt in order to overcome that kind of challenges.
Okay.
To live a good life in that place. So are they reluctant to those challenges and to adapt to the new ways? Are they reluctant, or They are like they are okay with it since they have. So like what kind of mindset does they have while going through those challenges? What does they feel? What are their thoughts on that? Like,
Of adapting.
yes, ma'am. On adapting and to how extent that does that affect the self discovery? Like,
Okay, a tough question. I can only try to answer because I hesitate to answer for a lot of people. 4.5 million Indians in USA and 272 million people, immigrants all over the world from everywhere. I think that adaptation is always a problematic thing for everybody, okay? Because when you are adapting, you are giving up something also, right? You have to. So when you are trying to speak good English or what they think is acceptable English, you change your accent so they can understand you. Now, I fully understand that if a person owns a shop and is dealing with Americans at all times, they may need to change how their accent because otherwise they won't sell any goods, right? But by and large, adaptation is not, you don't have to change yourself. You can, or you can do selective adaptation. Within the home, you can worship the gods you want to, have the beliefs that you want to, whether you are Hindu, whether you are Muslim, whether you are Jewish, whether you are whatever, Christian. But I think when it comes to the public sphere, so we're talking public versus private. What you do in private is your own business. But I think by and large, their adaptation is less than adequate. I hate to say this, but I think that not all, but a large number of Indians think of America as a land not so much of just opportunity, but of economic well-being. Okay? It is a land of opportunity. I've said over and over again that it was the opportunities. Where could I have got the opportunities to teach whatever I wanted to? And but it, people are going there not because they are crazy enough like me. They are going there because they want economic well-being. And there, I think it is somewhat of a mercenary thing. So they need to adapt more. It's like if I come to your house and if I say, nah, I'm a vegetarian, I can't eat this, I don't like this food, my feeling is tough luck. If you are my host, I'm your guest, then it behooves me, it is incumbent upon me, it is necessary out of courtesy that I show respect for your customs and your traditions. And even if I'm going to just taste a little bit, I do that, but I adapt to because you are my host. I think Indians have been lacking in adaptation. They all it feels like not all, but many of them only want the good life, the economic good life. And then they want to make money and return back. Huh? Now I see in Gujarat, the state that I sort of originally come from, or Ahmedabad where I go to, but in Gujarat, there are good things about making money also. Okay, the entire um, all across Gujarat, if you travel, and I'm sure that is true in UP, in Madhya Pradesh, in the south, where Indians who are living abroad remit, send back enormous amount of money to support their parents, to support their families, to build homes, um, to build temples and mosques, to support religious beliefs. They've changed the face of many villages. And that's a very good way to spend money. Okay, you make money, but at least you are giving back something to others who don't have. Okay, it's a business of money itself is not an evil. It is what you do with it that I'm troubled by. And I'm very energized to see that the face of many villages in India, they have improved, new houses, new roads, even better new schools, colleges, all because of the remissions of Indians overseas. And that's why the government, Indian government, has always been very mindful of keeping immigrants happy. They know that overseas Indians have money in their pockets and can do an enormous amount of good for the mother country. And they have their loyalty, which sometimes goes beyond what is necessary, has good sides to it, which is that they invest or reinvest some of their monies into improving the villages, the towns, the temples, the schools, particularly the schools and the colleges, and they pay for it. So I think that's good. I'm so glad you brought up that, because it is, I don't want to be negative here. I don't want to sound like I'm attacking and dumping on the overseas Indians. I'm a part of that diaspora, right? Other questions, please? Anything that's on your mind. You don't have to, otherwise, anything that whether it is personal based on what I have said, and there is no question that is a stupid question at all, ever. Yes, please. Do you want to, do you want to ask the question in a way that they can hear you? Huh? I want others to. Okay. So whoever is coming, either come here, go to the mic. I asked the gentleman.
Okay, this is the last question of the day, I hope. Because we have to go back and it's about to rain. You can come here और इसको और इनको मैसेज कर दो. अरे किसको पूछना है? चलो जल्दी से.
Free.
They are deciding.
हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. I'm the one who's the happiest.
Okay, both of you can ask.
Okay.
I'll be free in 5 minutes. Go home and sleep and eat and relax. क्या 7 बजे बंद कर रहे हैं? हाँ? You have to tell me. And Allah, I'm at your mercy. No, no. What happened to the question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
She said last question. Please ask.
good evening, ma'am. I would like to know, like you with decades of diasporic experience, how does the idea of home for you has transformed?
How idea of home?
Has transformed for you? Like, is it
Baba. Uh, uh, Professor Sada Farid will think I'm going to spend the next 7 hours talking about it. Uh,
I did not know that it is because I have started at 6:30.
मुझे पता नहीं, मेरे को टाइम का बिल्कुल पता नहीं. You decide, they decide. I am just following order. Oh, बेचारी यार ये लोग. मैं तो बिस्किट खा रही हूँ. Some of you share this if she allows. How many biscuits can one person eat? Huh? Okay. Idea of home, you said.
Ma'am, excuse me. Ma'am, my question is related to hers. So my question is, there are two kinds of people you mostly oscillate between. The people in India who are your friends and families, and the diasporic communities of Indians in USA. What are the differences you felt between these communities and how they have evolved you as a person?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's too loud, tell me. Huh? I hate echoes. Okay, so I spent the first 21 years of my life, first 22 years of my life in India, and the rest in USA. Okay, far more in USA. I had wonderful friends when I was in Delhi, from childhood, girlfriends whom I absolutely adored and loved. many of whom I have to say very proudly, some of whom have become well-known artists, women artists, and well-known people. And my and those contacts and my teachers, like I mentioned Dr. Thapar, whom I was so frightened of when I was a student because she was there on a pedestal and I was a nobody. But including all my friends and her, who is now a friend of mine after all these years, every time I came to India, I see my friends. So I spend an enormous amount of time seeing my Indian friends who have remained very close to my heart. When I went there, initially I, of course, didn't have any friends. Kiran, my husband, was already there for 4 years working on his PhD once, and he had his set of friends. And initially, because I was a newcomer and feeling very quite alienated in a new environment and worried about my studies and coping with all the new things, my friends became his friends became my friends, okay? A joint group of friends 50, 50, 48, 50 years ago, who were initially his friends, both men and women, fellow students and so on and so forth. Um, so we have two sets of friends, both extremely close to us and to our hearts. We see them all the time, the American friends, and when I come to India, the Indian friends. When my Indian friends come to America, I insist. There was this friend called Javed. He was at Jamia. Then there is Ansa. These are all my child. There was Anwar Abbas, K.A. Abbas, you know, the film producer's nephew or whatever. All of them coming, staying with me, living with me. All my friends I have kept up with. So I have a circle of friends close to my heart. And as I said, I live in two worlds. I can't stay without the other. I got to go back and forth, back and forth. Either they visit me or I visit them or I write to them. And you know what has happened? This talk about home, and then I'll stop. So what has happened for the new generation of immigrants, which is very advantageous, is social media. Yeah, that's the new thing, and I have to say that I am very backward with that. If I want to order a tea from downstairs, I don't know how to use the scanning system. मैं तो बहुत शर्म आती है मैं नीचे जाके डेस्क पे कहती हूँ कि मुझे पता नहीं कैसे आप लोग सब anyway all of you ऐसे 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 सेल फोन पर मैं तो and this I think I'm an older generation person to that extent. Not everybody, my husband is quite okay. My daughter, of course, is. And I am left behind totally. But I recognize that I can pick up the phone and dial every friend of mine. Nilima Sheikh in Baroda, the artist whom I loved from the time I was 3 years old or 4 years old, or somebody else, or in Delhi, and Javed, who's passed away last year, or Ansa in Pakistan, who's now in London. Every week. In fact, I told her, I said, Ansa, do not call me for the 5 days I'm working because I don't want distractions. I want only to prepare properly for my student. But Indians also see movies, right? So that it becomes another medium. They keep in touch emotionally and in terms of the culture with Indian movies. I wish I had more time. मैं काम करके वापस आती थी मैं इतनी थक जाती मैं movies who has the time in my life to see movies. Now I think after she frees me after 2 days, I'm going and seeing all these Indian movies that I kabhi could हाँ बिल्कुल because it's about diasporas. I can justify saying ये तो मैं काम कर रही हूँ. Okay, so people have to send me ideas. Huh? You have to send me suggestions. My email you can get from ma'am. And but Indians are very good at that, of keeping in touch with other Indians, with home country, with families. Sadly, I have very little family left in India. My, my mother and father are gone. Grandparents are gone. My baby sister, who's not baby anymore, is in the US. My elder brother is in Arizona. My family, whatever little, and my own family is with me. I am sort of lost touch. It is the friends who are close to my heart. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah. So, ma'am, do you think it is worth the hype about how Indians fantasize about studying abroad, and one can get the same level of academic success in India?
So, what the question is about?
Is it worth the hype about
Oh,
how Indian fantasize studying abroad?
okay, boy, that's a tough one for me to. I was perfectly happy with doing BA and MA in India. Okay, I was 100% satisfied with the education I got. But there was a yearning to explore a new land, new opportunities, have new adventures. Okay, I may not look it, but I'm very adventurous. I want new places and new things. I like to see new things, meet new people. Um, so I, but in answer to your question, I would say that American education is, Indian education is very good. Doing a PhD here is perfectly equal to doing a PhD there. The advantage is in the freedom to explore different subjects, new subjects, and they give you much more freedom to do many different things. In India, we are still stuck. You know, if I'm a student of ancient Indian history, all I do is take courses in ancient Indian history. I was never satisfied with. In America, I could move back and forth. You see how fickle how Indian history to Chinese history and Japanese history to African history to women's history to human experience to comparative religions. Nobody could stop me in the university. There was no way. They encouraged me and said, sure. Now, was I stubborn? Maybe. But if you have the guts, the American education is a wonderful education. It's for self-discovery and self-exploration. And the difference between, Sadaf, you don't listen. The difference between teacher and student is, uh, the, the gap is much less. So we are able to interact in ways that in India we were so afraid of our professors. On a pedestal, not so in America. Okay, and I think that's, I suppose so. So, of course, they're going to say yes. I don't know. Are you afraid of Dr. Farid, ma'am? So how is it that I'm afraid of her? Okay, I'm pulling her. She's my friend. Without her, I wouldn't be where I am here. No, but I think it's a different relationship. America is certainly a more egalitarian society. There is no question. Okay, so I'm going to counter that. Yes. Okay, I have to admit that I don't totally, for myself, my experience is not the same as Dr. Fareed, and I respect, the differences. In my class, if students came with a Coca-Cola in their hands or a sandwich in their hands, I didn't care. The only thing that was important to me, that they learned what I was teaching, and at the time of exam, when they had their papers, that they produced a work that they could be proud of. Okay, so for me there is no issue. I'm not suggesting that you should. She will say तुम तो बिगाड़ रहे हो मेरे students को, वो अब कमरे में आके खा रहे हैं वो classroom में. Don't do that, please. Of course, of course, of course. हाँ, बिल्कुल. But no, totally, totally. I totally agree, but this doesn't. Absolutely, but it is also true, and I'm going to be the devil's advocate here. It is also true that we are not very much an egalitarian society, huh? Uh, Compared to United States, where I had students from all kinds of backgrounds, uh, and students who had different cultural norms and all. India is still very much a class entrenched society, huh? And economically, I mean, how many students in the villages can afford unless they get a scholarship, huh? And the opportunities, the egalitarianism in American universities, to me, was one of the nicest things. And I'm more comfortable now with, I taught in Delhi University, but I'm perfectly happy because it doesn't, the quality of students does not change. It is just the customs that are different. Yeah. Okay. When you have to end, you end.
Okay.
No, please.
So, ma'am, my question was that since you shifted to United States, and it's a country of color. Like United States was populated by people who came across from a lot of part of the world. So people there are generally more accepting towards other people. Had you been, you went to maybe Japan or China or countries who had a culture of their own, an ancient history, do you think that you would have felt that comfort towards, being accepted as a foreigner?
Not, not at all. Uh, from a very personal example, I have to mention that my only brother, who is very beloved to me, is married to a Japanese woman, an artist whom he met when he was a student in America. I have traveled, of course, to China, but also to Japan. And I found Japan even more constricting and restricting than India. Okay? I had to behave, I mean, I had to, and I, even with my sister in law, forget going to Japan, this is Japan coming to America. I had to be very, in the beginning, she had a lot of trouble. I mean, you've seen my personality. I laugh, I talk, I criticize, I say things that may not be always. And she was married to my older brother. And she could not. The first week she met me, she was sitting there with a long face. And they were just newly married. They're married in my house. I was the host. I took care of the cooking with my husband. And I asked her, I said, what's the matter? I asked my brother when I took him aside. I said, what's the matter with Mamoy? Have you two, husband and wife, new husband and wife, have you fought with each other? And he called her. And she said, it's not your brother. It's you I am worried about. So she said, you speak too much. And you open your mouth too much. And you don't show enough respect for your older brother. Now, she didn't understand my relationship with my brother, which is a teasing relationship. I love him and he loves me. But we tease, it's like, we are teased. And she couldn't believe that I was so disrespectful. I mean, she thought I was disrespectful. And here, I'm stupid enough to think in marriage mein koi problem ho raha hai. The problem was not him, the problem was myself. And I learned my lesson to calm down when she, firstly, when to be a little more proper. So I don't go there. She comes to when she comes. But I think both of us have adjusted. Okay, we see less when he wants to really hang out with me. He comes alone, and we have a wonderful time. I go once a year very politely, and I'm in my best behavior, but it kills me. Uh, but much more difficult in Japanese, Chinese. China, I was there not for very long. I didn't live there. China was not easy. The language, I knew the language, but I had a very hard time. But I think the Oriental societies are even one step worse than us. Huh? And I'm just relaxed, you know. I like human beings, and I tease and joke, and I think there are different rules of etiquette. Japan and China are no. So American universities were very comforting. Americans are completely without any constraints about everything. A little too much on the extreme for me, but chalta hai. Any other way. I think we probably have. It was such a wonder. I mean, what am I going to do when I go home? I have to have my husband ask questions because otherwise I'm going to be lonely for all of you. Take care, please. ठीक है?
Thank you so much, Professor Purnima Mehtabad, for sharing your valuable experience when you moved to US. So, as we have moved to the ending culmination of the program, the session has ended. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. नहीं रखो यहाँ कल के लिए. हाँ? Oh, I see. I was going to walk away with that.